Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me today. Please excuse the girls in the background. This camera is very sensitive at picking up background noise, so I'm probably sure that you can hear them. It's school holidays here, so they are home. And if I don't film this now, there probably won't be a video for ages. I've already not put one up for a week, so I'm very conscious of the fact that I'm a little overdue. So anyway, as the title suggests, this is Olivia's birth story. Hence the Mummy and Olivia title. She is my oldest, she is my first. So I am just going to talk through her birth. I will then do another one for my youngest. Sadly, both my birth experiences weren't that great. They were a bit... Actually... yeah, they weren't great. Let's just say they weren't great. So, my pregnancy with my first was an absolute breeze. I put on an absolute ton of weight. I kind of did the whole eating for two thing, which I know is really bad. I know you're not supposed to do it. I know they say not to do it. But I just kind of thought, I'm going to get fat anyway, so what difference does it make? But my gosh, I think I put on about 5 stone. I'm not even exaggerating. So yeah, that wasn't great. Anyway, my pregnancy was absolutely fine. Everything was as it should be. Didn't have any complications, didn't have any issues, other than the fact that it got quite big. Then she was due, I think it was the 20th of June. And she was late. Sadly, my due date came and went and there was no baby. So I had all the usual, have you had baby yet? Text messages that you get, and she was not coming. Then, obviously when you're late, I was booked in for a sweep, so I had that. That seemed to get things going at 11 days overdue, I think I was. This all started on the Friday, and then Olivia was born the day after. I think I was booked in for an induction on the Monday actually, so yeah. So I was booked in to have the induction on the Monday. Thankfully, I didn't have to have it because she decided to come of her own accord. So I woke up in the morning and I lost some of my plug, but because it was my first, I was really naive and I wasn't actually aware that that's what it was. Kind of had a bit of period pains, I suppose, and obviously throughout the day, I just slowly progressed throughout the day. I almost had to beg to be seen by a midwife at around 5 o'clock because I just needed a confirmation that I actually was in labour. So they examined me and they said, yes, you're, I think I was about 3 centimetres. Obviously go home, have a bath, blah, 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 blah. So I went home, this was about 5, 6 o'clock at night, I'm sure it was, on the Friday. So I went home, like they told me to, had a bath. Then I remember getting into bed and I didn't really sleep. I was trying to get some sleep. The pain seemed to have sort of ramped up a lot. Then I went to the toilet and I didn't know at the time, but my waters went when I was on the toilet. I wasn't aware that it was my waters. I guess because I was on the toilet. I don't know. So then my mum rang the hospital and she said, I think the labour's coming along, can she come down and be examined? And they kept saying, oh, it'll probably be hours yet, stay at home as long as possible. But the pain was so intense. I said to my mum, I really need to go. So we went to hospital. I remember the drive there wasn't overly great, it was really bumpy. My mum was like, oh, Emily, you're quite calm. I wasn't crying, I wasn't screaming, I wasn't hysterical, I was quite chilled. A lot of pain, but chilled. We got to the hospital, obviously buzzed up, went into the labour ward, and the midwife said to my mum, oh, you'll be going home. Yeah, we'll examine her, but you'll be going home. So I went, obviously make you a sample, so I left a sample, and then I remember going back in ready to be checked and examined to see how far I was, and the midwife came in and she said, Emma, have your waters broken? I was like, no, don't think so. I don't, no, I don't know. She was like, yeah, I think they have, Emma. I was like, oh, okay, well, I didn't realise. So when I said earlier, I think they went on the toilet, it must have been then. Because it definitely wasn't in the car. So they said, oh, obviously you have to stay, you know, we were expected to examine me, and they said, oh my gosh, you're 6 centimetres. And even the midwife said to me, we honestly thought we'd be sending you home. We didn't think you were as far gone as you obviously are. I was like, oh, okay, in a lot of pain. It's all a bit, whilst I'm doing this, it's all very much a haze. There was a lot of gas and air, so it's all very much a bit of a blur. Then I remember going to the labour ward. I was taken to the labour delivery ward. They said, would you like an epiphedrine? And I said, when can I have an epidural? Now this is really funny, because with my first, and I was asked what pain relief I wanted, I said I just wanted gas and air. I said I didn't want anything else. I wanted to be fully aware of what was going on. I just wanted gas and air, which is absolutely hysterical when I got to hospital and I was like, when can I have an epidural? And they said, well, now, you can have one now. I was like, yeah, I want it, I want one now. So obviously I waited for the anaesthetist, they came in, I had my epidural. And I remember going from like intense pain, well, I know it wasn't that intense, to just chilled out. I was so mellow on the bed because obviously I couldn't feel anything. I was just so calm and chilled out. Anyway, I very, very slowly progressed all night, literally all night. I can't remember what time I had the epidural. Possibly about 11:30ish, maybe a little bit later. I really can't remember. I progressed all night and all day through to the Saturday morning. Then at 7, 8, 9, it must have been about 7:30 in the morning. About that, I think it was. They said I was fully dilated and that basically I needed to start pushing, even though I wasn't ready to push, like my body wasn't telling me to push. They basically said you need to start pushing. So I did a lot of pushing. I was very tired, very, very tired. I think towards the end I was falling asleep. I was pushing for 3 hours. 3 solid hours of pushing. I don't know why I was allowed to push for that long, but I was. 3 very long hours. And towards the end, I remember a lot of people came into the room. There was a consultant, there was forceps, ventouse, there was midwives, there was senior midwives, there was student midwives, there was a paediatrician. Because they were all thinking, because the trauma of labour, of me pushing for 3 hours, that actually when she came out she'd probably need some help. And I remember at the time, I was very tired, mind. You know, you imagine if you're trying to go for the toilet for 3 hours, you're going to be tired. I remember saying the paediatrician was really little and she looked very young. And I remember telling her that she would not be looking after my child. Because she clearly hadn't long left school, but she had, and I did massively apologise to her. So any doctors or nurses, I'm sure whatever women say in the heat of the moment, they really don't mean it, because I was so apologetic the next day and I was extremely embarrassed, But at the time I was very tired, I was in a lot of pain. They started to wear the epidural off because they were hoping that if it wore off a bit and I could feel the pain, that I'd push harder. But totally backfired, because the more it hurt, the more I didn't want to push, and the more I wanted gas and air, the more I was going to sleep. So anyway, 3 hours. They were near the end of pushing. I'm going to say the end because it was the end. And the consultant said to my midwife, right, on the next contraction, I think he was getting ready to use ventouse or forceps. I can't quite remember, one of the two. And he said, on the next contraction, we've got to do this. This baby's getting really distressed. We have got to do this. Then it must have been a long enough period, because I remember the consultant saying, you haven't said that she needs to push. And the midwife said, she's not having contractions anymore. Then all I remember after that was them reading me my rights and wrongs, which I'm guessing was obviously preparing me for a cesarean section. I remember hearing the word cesarean section. I remember them saying that they were rushing around to prep theatre, and they were obviously making me sign a form. They weren't making me, but obviously they were reading me what would happen and that they might take my womb away and blah, blah, blah. I remember signing the form in a bit of a haze. I was very tired, and all I remember thinking was, oh, thank goodness this is going to end soon. Thank goodness I'm coming to the end of this labour because I'm very tired. Then I don't know, because I've only ever had an emergency section. My experience was absolutely horrific. I would never ever choose to have a cesarean section again. Never in my life. If I had to have one for medical reasons, I would never choose, never. So I was obviously rushed into theatre. I remember the anaesthetist asking me what song I wanted on, what music I wanted on. I can't really remember, but I know I picked it because I was told that I picked it. It was my choice. I remember the sheet going up. I remember feeling so tired, so tired. I remember them doing, I'm not sure, a few other people have said to me they didn't have this, so I don't know if they do it everywhere, but the ice cube test, so they would run the ice cube down my body. So obviously I could feel it, but where I'd had my epidural, it was cold, because they were obviously now ramping up the epidural because they were set to a section. So they'd gone from easing it off to massively pumping me full of drugs so they could slice and dice me. And I remember they did the ice cube test and I was like, yeah, no, it's not cold, it's not cold. Then I remember them saying, right, we're starting now. I remember them starting to cut me and I was screaming that they had to stop because it was hurting me. Now, in reality, they were obviously all panicked. In reality, it wasn't hurting me. I just imagined that I wouldn't feel anything. But my goodness me, do not be fooled. When you've had an epidural, you can feel it, everything. So I was all like, it's hurting. It wasn't hurting. So they all panicked, stopped what they were doing. Then they were doing the ice cube test again and they were like, I mean, you are going to feel something, but it shouldn't hurt. And I was like, ugh. Anyway, that was the worst experience of my life. And they done it. I remember them pulling her out and I was like, oh my God, she was here. And she didn't cry. She had a lot of build up on her chest, fluid on her chest. So they were sucking her out and doing what they need to do. And I remember feeling such an overwhelming sense of relief that she was out. I just remember that. And I, obviously I got to hold her. I'll try and do a little montage of some pictures at the end from my birth with Olivia. I don't have many, but I've got a few, so I'll see what I can find. And obviously she was all fine, she was crying and I had a little hold, and then they took her out to my mum so that I could be repaired, that's the better word for it. Then I remember, again, I think I told them it was hurting. Again, it clearly wasn't hurting, it was just very uncomfortable. So they gave me gas and air. The only problem was, I'm obviously all like open, I'm all guts hanging out, womb hanging out, and then I started to be sick. So you can imagine all these doctors are trying to stitch me back together, and I'm like, you know when you're sick and your stomach's all, and I can remember them all having another panic on again because I was being sick. They took the gas and air off me and they told me I wasn't allowed gas and air. Then I remember, really bizarrely, I remember saying I felt like I was dying. I don't know why, and I was crying and I kept telling them that I was going to die on their operating table. Obviously I didn't because I'm still here, but in the heat of the moment I did feel like I was going to die. It wasn't great. Again, you know, they done everything they could, just my overall thoughts and feelings about a C-section were just not good. Anyway, they stitched me all back up together, it was all great. I was wheeled back into the labour room, labour ward, I'm sure that's where they take you, isn't it? And I was put with Olivia and it was just amazing. And I remember thinking, gosh, obviously I was very sore. Yeah, and then we went and had our own little room. We had family come and visit, my friends came and visited the next day, and obviously I told everyone she was here. She was born at 12:03 on the 3rd of July, and she was 7 pounds 7 ounces. So I put on 5 stone and had a half stone baby. So work that out. That was a lot of cake, a lot of food, but they, obviously everything was fine, and we went back to the labour ward. And then on the Monday, the midwife came around in the morning, and, oh no, just going back, on the Sunday, the midwife came around, and she said, right, you need to get out of bed, Emma. You need to walk, you need to go and shower yourself, you need to get out of bed. And I said, okay, great. I'm definitely not disrespecting the NHS, because my gosh, they do a lot. But I said to the midwife, will somebody come and assist me? And she said, yes. 3 hours later, I was still waiting for assistance. So at 26 years of age, my mum had to help me shower. She had to come in and she had to help me, because obviously you have to make sure your scars are dry. It wasn't nice. It really wasn't very nice. I was in a lot of pain still, and they were obviously pumping me full of drugs, which is great, but it still definitely hurt. Then on the Monday they came and told me I could go home, which I was really shocked about, because I remember telling them that I was in quite a bit of pain, and I think they thought I was being a drama queen, but I wasn't. Well, I suppose considering that I went down and had epidural, but I didn't feel right. You know, I'd spoken to people who had cesarean sections, and they didn't feel like I was feeling. I didn't feel perfect. It's hard to explain, but I didn't feel right. So anyway, that was all fine. Then I went home, and for the next week or so, I kind of was in a new mummy haze. I just dealt with things and done what needed to be done. Then I got up, I think Olivia was a week and a half old. So on the weekend after Olivia was born, I remember having hot and cold flushes, but it was July, it was hot, so I just assumed I was hot. I mean, it's a hot month, but you know, the heat wave that we've just had, I'm sure people who are having hot flushes probably just thought it was the heat. Then a few days later, I woke up and realised that I hadn't been for a wee for like 12 hours. And I remember thinking, gosh, that's really bizarre. Why have I not been for a wee? Anyway, I sat on the toilet, turned the tap on, nothing happened. Then I thought, this is strange. So I rang the doctors and asked if I could have an appointment to see somebody. And they said, yes, come down. I was like, great, I can't drive. I've had a cesarean section, I can't drive. So I managed to get a lift to the doctors. And I remember by the time I went to the doctors, I could barely walk. I could barely stand up. I was in so much pain. I was killed over. I guess it was a bit of pain. There was obviously pressure there. And the pain from when you've obviously had a lot of wee in and you need to go. It was like that. So I pretty much crawled into the doctors. I'm not even exaggerating, on all fours, because I couldn't stand. Went in, doctor examined me and was like, you've probably got an infection. I'll give you some antibiotics, off you go home. I was like, okay, thanks, but what about the whole not going to the toilet? Yeah, I just ring the hospital. So I rang the hospital, they wanted to see me. So I obviously had to get Olivia looked after, and then ended up back in hospital. And it's funny the things you don't forget. I was obviously put in a wheelchair to be taken into the hospital because I physically couldn't stand up at this point. I was in so much pain. Then we were wheeled into reception of, I had to go to a special ward, I can't remember where I went. And I gave this lady the letter. She read the letter that clearly said why I'd been sent there, because I've had a section, I can't go to the toilet. And she gave me a pot and said, can you go for a wee? I actually laughed at her. I said, have you not just read that letter? Because that's the reason I'm here. Oh yeah, oh, just going to sit in reception. Anyway, I did. I'm just going to cut this bit really short because this is probably a whole other story, and if anybody wants to know any more, then just drop me a message. But basically, I ended up with a womb infection. I ended up with an abscess that was 7 centimetres in diameter behind my section scar. And basically, I was in hospital for 2 weeks, and they had to drain the abscess. They had to get all the pus out and they had to drain it. And at one point they thought they would have to open me up again, and they told me categorically, had they needed to open me up, that it would be bad. It'd be really bad. because obviously there's the risk of more infection because it's already an open wound, and then you run the risk of more infection. Anyway, they managed to drain it. I was put on IV antibiotics and I stayed in for 2 weeks. And then I was sent home with more antibiotics and the fancy leg injections that you had from a section. And that was it. Everything's been fine since. So yeah, so that was it really. So basically, long shot of it was, my experience of a cesarean section was not good. Definitely would never choose to have one ever again, unless they knock me out and wake me up when it's done. That's the only way I will probably willingly have one. If you've got any questions about anything I've mentioned in this, please let me know. Can I just say, my main point of sharing the bit at the end about the infection is trust your instinct. I knew when I left hospital something wasn't right. I knew it wasn't. I was in a lot of pain, and I remember them telling me that I was fine and almost making it out like I was imagining it. However, clearly the infection was looming from when I was stitched back up. So it loomed for a week and a half, and then got to the point where it was very serious indeed, because obviously they had to open me up again, my survival chances were very slim. And they told me that, they were very honest, and they told me that my survival chances of having to undergo more surgery and the risk of the infection bursting would obviously lead to sepsis. So they were straight up and they told me my chances of survival were, which is not great when you just had a new baby and you're in a bit of a panic. So the bottom line is, trust your instinct. If you do not feel right, tell them, and push and push and push. Do not be pushed aside like I was, and I just ignored it because they told me I was imagining it. I wasn't. Anyway, if you've got any questions, just leave them below and I will answer them as best as I can. Obviously I'm not medical, but I can speak from experience. So that was Olivia's birth story. That's how she came into the world. Bit of a diva. She still probably is. Not as much as the other one, but definitely still a bit of a diva. So I will end this here. Thank you so much for watching. It's probably been a bit of a long one, so I really appreciate you watching, and I will see you all soon. Bye.
About to leave, already packing. Come with me, I'm not really asking. We'll get away to a place where we don't know. About to see the world in action, what we can be, life with no distractions. We'll get away, this is what we waited for.